So where did we leave off? I think in this whole process, I kind of lied. I said that I had filmed the whole thing step by step, but really, um, in January 2021, my biological sisters had contacted me via Facebook. And for a while, I was just talking to them, getting to know them. We would translate everything through Google Translate. A few months later, I think my birth mother actually reached out because she wasn't really familiar with her phone and how to contact me. At the time, so in mid 2021, I started to take classes with a Vietnamese teacher. At the time, COVID was still kind of around, so I ended up doing most of those classes online, and I didn't last very long. And I think that I was putting a lot of pressure on myself because there was emotional motives for learning the language, and it wasn't just for fun, or it wasn't just because I need to learn it for my job or something like that. I wanted to say things that were kind of deep. Obviously you don't learn those things right away, but I kind of just let go of those classes and stopped. So throughout 2021, I think that I was just kind of processing what it was like to have this information in my hands. I was also struggling at work and with my mental health. And I ended up having a lot of personal life stuff happen, um, which led to me focusing more on that. And we could analyze it and maybe say that most of that was probably because there was this big, how could you say, this big volcanic news that was happening in my life, and things started to kind of crumble around it. Um, so my plan to go to Vietnam and meet my family was one hard because COVID restrictions were very strict in Vietnam, much later than in Europe. Two, because I wasn't really prepared for what was going to happen, how I was going to deal with it, and I actually wasn't really ready to go, or I didn't think I was, to go to Vietnam right away. I decided to deal with other things. It actually really helped me put everything out on the table. Things that I felt for a very long time that I maybe didn't realize were going on inside of me. Trauma, I had to go to a psychiatric hospital for a while. I changed therapist, and actually I started to see a psychologist that specialized in adoption. Just started to change my perspective, really put my story and what brought me here today to the forefront, and really dissect all of it. Even though I knew all that was out there, I knew that was happening in my life, that I was adopted, that maybe there'd be family, that then I find out that I do have family. It kind of just kind of and was I had to clean it up, if that makes sense. So 2022, I started to kind of pick myself back up from a very hard mental period. Like I said in my previous video, I've been living in France for the past 10 years. And in 2022, the visa that I had, the green card, you could call it, I had ran out. Like I didn't have time on it anymore. I had to renew it, but I didn't have a reason to renew it, meaning I wasn't working for anyone at the time. I was no longer a student. The question of getting married was kind of reoccurring. How can I stay? I wanted to maybe open a business. I went through lots of hoops and lots of questioning around the staying in France, and I've been here for a long time, so I've made a community. I have chosen family here. I have my partner here, and so we decided to get married, start the process of getting married. Once Clem, my boyfriend, and I started to start the process, another year goes by, like 6 months. From November 2022 to around August 2023, I had been working. I had a legal visa. I was just more mentally preparing myself to when that one was going to come to an end, which was in October 2023. So I had a few months. But in France, when you get married, you have to submit a file to the city hall to be approved. And especially when you're a foreigner, you need more papers. Show where you were born, your birth certificate, etc. So we don't get an appointment until August 2023. So about when we decided to get married, it was about 6 months later we started the process. I have a Vietnamese birth certificate, but it wasn't renewed. There's this whole process where you need to renew it. You need to go to where you were born, the administrative office where you were born, and apply. So Clem had to request a birth certificate with a new stamp from the city he was born in. I only had a Vietnamese birth certificate, so to me it seemed kind of impossible, and I even reached out to the Vietnamese embassy. They were like, we couldn't help you. And I said that to my therapist at the time, and she was like, well, it's strange because you're in the States. When you're adopted from another country, the adopting family has to, like, the agency is supposed to help them go through a legal process where they give you an American birth certificate, and I never had that. I always had my Vietnamese birth certificate and a name change. So an American name change legally stated by the state of California. So the woman asks me, well, do you have a renewed Vietnamese birth certificate? Well, can't you just accept it? She said no. And in her own words, she says, you need to go to Vietnam and get a renewed one. Very hard process. I even reached out to friends on Instagram saying, can anyone help me translate, blah, blah, get in contact with the authorities in Vietnam, and it just didn't lead anywhere. Come October, my visa runs out. Um, I don't really know what to do, and I was really struggling. This was weighing on me mentally, and I then see a Reiki healer. This person took me in for an appointment and told me that I actually had, like, my energy and my chakras were seemed to be aligned. And so I was like, well, I feel very not aligned. She said to me at the end of our session, so I did what I could, I cleansed you, whatever. But I had told her about my story and what was happening. And she said to me, well, I don't really see any other solution but to go back and find your roots, find where you were born and what pulls you. It seems to me that you are quite conscious of what you've been through and your trauma, but you're not doing what you need to be doing. She explicitly said, you need to go to Vietnam and find what's there. I already had the contact of my birth family at the time, so it didn't make sense for me to continue life without going there. I mean, some people that's not something they want to do, but for me, I knew I wanted to go one day. I just didn't know what was stopping me. And obviously, with my visa ending, I had to go and apparently get this birth certificate, and I had family waiting to meet me. And happily, the Reiki healer said to me, promise me within a month that you will buy a ticket to Vietnam and you will go. I obviously hesitated, being like, who is this person telling me to do this? I bought a ticket to fly out 2 days after my 26th birthday, and I would go alone. And I had sent a message to the person who found my family, Monique, and she would come and show me around Ho Chi Minh, and then I'd take a bus to Nha Trang and meet the rest of my family. I think that leads up to the rest. Today is the 26th of November. 2 days ago, I turned 26. I am at the airport on my way to Vietnam for the first time to meet my birth family. I need some paperwork, actually. That's kind of adds into the story. I'm going alone for 2 weeks. And then the last week, I'll be meeting one of my best friends, McKenna. We grew up together. I couldn't express any emotions these past couple of days. I had a lot of emotions, but I couldn't express any of them up until yesterday. And so I was saying to my mom, I feel like I'm being dropped off to summer camp. Like, really don't want to go. But now I'm going across the world, I think, and visiting my birth family, leaving for 3 weeks alone. So it's not the same. And then this morning, saying goodbye to my boyfriend, I told him I was scared and that